Hello, class. This is Dr. Turpin. I'm going to give you some information about spirituality. We will not have a huge number of questions on this content, but I do want you to get some basics because there are probably a few. In terms of the history of spirituality in nursing, this just kind of goes over the types of ways that nursing was perceived or how care was rendered. In the pre-Christian era, care was considered a value of hospitality and charity, and you see references to that. Once we had the early Christian faiths established, you hear, the golden rule became kind of an evident thing: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so nursing care was considered like a vital component of loving your neighbor and caring for someone. In the post-Reformation movement, nursing orders were established, and I don't mean written nursing orders like we've done in care planning, but typically orders from the Catholic faith in terms of nuns, but it could be in other kinds of sects or orders that were established as well. And these groups of nurses were bound together. Most of them lived together. And had a religious or a spiritual component to why they cared for people. So you hear people refer to, I had a calling to become a nurse. It really is a direct tie-in to how focused nursing was when it really became pretty established and organized. It was more under that kind of thinking. And so we have strong roots in the nursing profession to spirituality because of that. And spirituality was considered absolutely fundamental to healing and wellness and health for patients at that time. Since then, in the mid-20th century now and forward, spiritual care has been seen as very much less important. And as we've talked about before, we have a huge focus of scientific method and science within how care is provided now. And while spiritual care is a component, it is not focused on near as much as it used to be. These are just a couple slides that kind of break down the difference between religion and spirituality. And so you think of religion as a set of beliefs, codes of conduct, manners of living. Religions may have specific rituals, symbols, sacraments, holy writings that are kind of the bases of authority. And religions are concerned with access to some type of divine power or being or higher power of some sort that you want to transcend to become close to as well. And then when you think about spirituality, that is much more basic type of internal to yourself type thing versus a formalized religion. So spirituality is a journey that takes place over time. It's kind of based on how you have accumulated life experiences and understanding so that you kind of find deep meaning and value and purpose in your life. It may have a sense of connection to a being or a presence that makes you feel like you're in tune with yourself or with whatever power that it is. But it may have nothing to do with a specific religion. So when you look at this question 1, the nurse notes on admission that the client has indicated no religious preference. He understands that the client, A, does not follow the tenets of a specific faith, B, is in denial about his religious beliefs, C, does not believe in God or higher power, or D, will not want to pray or visit with the chaplain. So this is a good question because A is the correct answer. But you all may have your own religious beliefs, And those form the basis of how you look at religion or spirituality for others, whether you realize it or not. So if you belong to a religious faith yourself in your personal spiritual life, where lack of a specific faith equals no belief in God, then you may have trouble with this question. But when you really think about it, a person can have no religious preference, but can still be a very spiritual being in the way they view spirituality. So it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't believe in God. It's not a denial of their beliefs. And it doesn't mean that they won't want to pray. They may still have spiritual behaviors, but they may not have a specific faith. These are some core issues of spirituality, and I won't read those off to you. I think they're pretty commonly understood, that faith really helps us confront challenges and gives us a set of beliefs that kind of develop over time, and it helps us to understand both suffering as well as rejoicing in life. Hope is not just a belief that it's not wishful thinking. It is more really how we view possibilities, and how we find the peace in ourselves to be able to endure and to heal and to be able to love in the future. And then love is a big important issue or concept in spirituality, because how do we have human relationships? Those give meaning in our life. And when we lose love in our life through death, how do we mourn and grieve? And how does that bring us close to others or a higher being? Other core issues of spirituality, you hear people talk about cures, miracles, and spiritual healing. This just kind of gives you some ideas of what a miracle truly is. But people who have beliefs in miracles can or have had experiences in their life prior to when you're caring for them where they believe that in healing or have believed in miracles. We truly don't know the extent of how much that impacts their healing. It definitely can impact what they expect based on whether they have experienced these kinds of profound things before. This is just a discussion about relationship between religion and spirituality. Of course, we've already talked about they're completely separate. Religion most religious faiths have an aspect of spirituality within them, but they can be sometimes vague and very, very individualized to people. So it's kind of a mystery trying to figure out with every client exactly how they view these things themselves and how that may relate to their ability to heal or deal with illness. This just discusses about spiritual beliefs and health. Some research says that religion is positive for physical and mental health, while other research says that religious values may impede positive health outcomes. So basically, there's not a real good answer as to why. And then I wanted to bring up two terms, fatalism and fatalismo. Fatalism is often seen in the Hispanic culture, and it's rooted in Buddhism as well. It's where we view people within those faiths may view fatal disease as something is predestined by nature. And so their acceptance of a fatal disease based on that may be absolute. They may not see the need to fight cancer because it's predestined. And fatalismo is similar to this. It's in the Asian culture, and it's also rooted in Christianity. You hear people talk about predeterminism, and they believe that a disease is predetermined and it's going to have predictable outcomes. And both of these kinds of beliefs negatively impact patients' participation in preventive care activities, because they see no reason at all. If everything's predestined or predetermined and it's not going to be in my control, it's the Lord's will, or it's the will of a higher power, and it's already been determined as part of my future, then there's really no reason I need to do anything about anything. I just need to trust in the Lord or trust in that higher power and go on about my business. So you can see how sometimes that might slow preventive health for sure. I've given you several slides here about all the different religions that are the main ones. That's not to say that people may have other variations than what I'm giving you here. And I have provided you a PDF document that is under Chapter 12 resources, and it's a very good guide for specific religions and how to make sure that you're caring properly for different religions. I would spend some time really trying to, make you a note, for each one of these that might be like, what would be some good approaches or some things that might be expected that are unique to these. You might even want to make you a little table study guide for this. But I've left you some speakers' notes in here that give you some specifics about different religions that you can use. And getting really aware of some of these nuances. You won't remember them all, but the more that you can kind of memorize some of those will be really helpful for you when you are dealing with patients of different religions. So first off, you have Judaism, and there's different sects of in Judaism to be aware of. Other major religions, of course, include Christianity, where we see Catholicism, Christian Science, and Protestantism, which we have a lot of in the Bible Belt here in the South. And then other major religions such as Islam or Hinduism, and again here the speaker notes are giving you some details specific to that. More types of religions: Buddhism, American Indian religions, Rastafarianism, and atheism. Those are all ones to consider and know something about as well. Question 2. It would be most appropriate for the nurse to instruct the nursing assistive personnel to assist clients of which faith to wash their hands before meals. So actually D, Muslim, is the right answer. They have specific focus on cleanliness, and particular related to preparation for meals. Not to say that we wouldn't typically help lots of patients to wash their hands before meals, because we've already learned how much hand washing we need to be doing in the hospital. But just be aware that there are some specific nuances to that for the Muslim patient. These are some other important things to know, and I'll try to run through these fairly quick. Main things: you want to try to improve your own self-knowledge of religions. So being open, when you have an opportunity to meet somebody from a different faith, openly ask them, whether it's a patient or a friend or somebody that you've met, have them give you some ideas about how would that affect care for patients in a hospital. Spiritual care has to demand on you having non-judgmental attitudes and very open thinking. These are some barriers to spiritual care. Obviously you can have lack of awareness, in general, lack of awareness of your own spiritual belief system, and then whether those differences between spirituality between the nurse and the client are having an effect. or fear that your knowledge base is insufficient, so you just don't discuss